There once was a man named Gold Roger who was king of the pirates. He had fame, power, and wealth beyond your wildest dreams. Before they hung him from the gallows, these were the final words he said.
Our perspective is yours for the taking, but you'll have to join us first. We left everything we debated at the Yonko table.
Ever since, pirates from all over the world set sail for the Grand Line, searching for the Yonko table, the table that will make their dreams come true.
Yo, folks. Welcome to the latest and the greatest from the Yonko table. That is the voice of Grandmaster Hoop coming at you from courtside, because we're not here to talk about a basketball movie, but we are here to talk about a basketball movie, just not the basketball movie you expected. That's right, folks. We're here to talk about the hit new film Air. Yeah, that's right. A-I-R, Air. The story about the lucrative signing of Michael Jordan to Nike, and thus the birth of a shoe line that has forever been part of this world, and you can't miss it. It's everywhere. Air. The shoe. Air Jordans. Michael Jordan, greatest of all time. Up for debate for the basketball heads, but Air Jordans, the shoes, probably the best shoes of all time. Up for debate for the sneaker heads. We're here to talk about the film about the making of this deal and this shoe. With me, as always, is DrJaceAttorney. Psych, just kidding. DrJaceAttorney did not tune in for Air. He's still on his Super Mario Brothers movie high. But don't worry, I got a host of supernovas here who are here to talk about this movie. And let's see who we're hearing from tonight. Okay, perfect. Let's get into Air. Air. The story of the Air Jordan. Is this a movie that anybody wanted? Is this a movie that you were like, damn, when are they going to make that Air movie about the making of Air Jordans? Where's that movie? I want that movie. Was anybody over here like, this is what we need?
Can't say that I was craving this movie. But I think similar to its origin stories, the Last Dance documentary at the kind of like the scariest, most locked in times of the pandemic really revitalized, I think, an interest in Michael Jordan and like his story and his kind of legacy. And a part of that, obviously, is his shoe line and Air Jordans. And so I can't say I watched that and I was like, I want to hear the history of how Air Jordans came to be. But funny enough, I think the writer of this movie did do that, where he saw, The Last Dance and was inspired to tell the story of how kind of like this deal got done and Air Jordans kind of came to be. So I don't know if I was like, had any interest of this movie in particular, but one person did, and here we are.
I'm thinking about this from a variety of like angles. One is like, this is sort of a sports movie. I think this is the type of sports movie we're gonna get in the mainstream. I think they've done all of that they could in terms of like making the Rockies or making baseball themed films or football, where you tell the story about an underdog or someone who's kind of scratching and clawing their way to the top, or maybe not. But I think this is what we sort of get now with sports movies. It reminded me a lot of Moneyball in terms of like, it's a baseball movie, but also there's so much talk behind the scenes. Like you're seeing what's happening as they're trying to construct a team with very little money. And this felt like that, of like, it is sort of a basketball movie, but it's behind the scenes of what's happening with basketball. So it reminded me a little bit of that, of like, how do we almost like deconstruct the sports formula, because we've seen it so many times. So we need to do something a little new. And then it's also like we're doing a lot of like brand movies lately. I think you mentioned Super Mario Brothers, Dungeons and Dragons just came out. I think Tetris is out on Apple. Like we're doing a lot of, let's find a brand and make a movie around it because we need something people are familiar with, but we don't have like Marvel, or we don't have Star Wars, or we don't have DC to kind of make something out of. And so I think some of these like different companies, Amazon in this case, I believe this is an Amazon Studios movie, or Apple, etc., are like, we need to figure out something that the general public knows about and make a movie out of it. So they, they come and we try to make some money, etc. So I think there's something to do with brands here. And then the very last thing is just like, this is a return of like Ben Affleck behind the camera. I believe his last film was like Live by Night, which is the only film that he's directed that I haven't seen. And so it's kind of a return, and it's interesting to kind of see him team up with Matt Damon again, which he has in the past as far as like writing and constructing films together. And then you have Viola Davis. So I think it's interesting kind of looking at it from like, you have all these charismatic like superstars in a film together that's also about a brand that's also like on the outskirts of sports movie. So I don't know if on like the front end they announced it, I was like, oh, I'm super interested. But I think when all of those pieces are put together, there was like, oh, I'll go see that in theaters. There's like a little bit of intrigue about what they're going to make out of this. So
yeah, to kind of build on that point. Initially, no, but as soon as you see the cast and stuff, you're kind of like, I'm intrigued. At least for me, I'm like, okay, I'm familiar with Nike, Air Jordan, etc. Right? The cast, okay. We got Viola Davis, we got Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Jason Bateman, Chris Tucker. I'm like, okay, this is it's interesting. This is not a documentary. This seems like definitely for entertainment purposes. So. The star-studded kind of drew me personally a little bit more. I might have watched it on my own regardless, but as far as going to see it theatrically, the star power definitely brought me to the theater from that perspective. But one interesting thing that Dr. Reed kind of alluded to that I'll say quickly, this is a joke, but you never know, is are we going to get an Air universe?
What would be next in the Air universe?
The next pair of Jordans.
The sequel, so the J2s,
the Jordan 2s.
Sure. I don't know what went into that one. I thought they would just
the Barkley shoe.
Charles
Charles Barkley also had has shoes with Nike.
Sure.
And once, or Allen Iverson's the I3s. I don't know if they were called
the AIs. Weren't they the
AIs? The answers.
What about
the answers?
What about the Shaqs? No, the Shaqs.
Shaqs. You can go to Adidas, Converse.
But those were a thing.
Kobe.
Yeah.
Kobe's.
Kobe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kobe was Adidas first, then Nike.
And then you could start diving into baseball. The Ken Griffey's. Those were fun.
The Griffey's. Those are good. Those are good.
Does I don't know if every shoe deserves a quality of film like this, because this was definitely, I think, a very quality film. And for all the elements that we all just mentioned, the cast was stacked. Ben Affleck, to my record, I don't think he's missed directing wise.
Did he direct Gigolo? Or was he just in it?
No, he did not.
I do believe Live by Night is kind of considered to be his miss.
That's the miss. So he has one miss.
Okay.
He's also only directed 5 feature films, so
he's got a 90%. That's pretty good. I mean, we
and a Best Picture win.
He does have a Best Picture win.
Was he Best Director?
Wait, 90%?
He's got a 90%.
That's 80%. 4 out of 5.
Damn, you're right.
It's okay. That's why we're here.
He does have a Best Picture win for Argo.
Wait, did he get director for Argo, or he just got Best Picture?
He wasn't even nominated, I don't believe.
Ooh.
Best Screenplay for
yeah,
the first one, Good Will Hunting.
Oh,
that's the thing. They both are prolific filmmakers,
Yes.
and like in many different facets. We're seeing like Michael B. Jordan kind of take the reins of trying to be an actor, director. It's kind of like interesting. I think a lot of people thought he did well with his first one. But we have Ben Affleck right here, who kind of gets like memeified and kind of like is like a big like attraction for the gossip magazines and stuff like that. But like when you remove all that, and you take it all away, like he really is a great all-around filmmaker, kind of similar with Matt Damon also. They're both movie stars and behind the camera. they're also very accomplished people, and you don't see a lot of that. We're seeing Michael B. Jordan kind of try it in this like kind of next phase of his career. So it is cool to see.
No, it's definitely cool to see, and I think this is something worth pointing out too. Talking about the team of Affleck and Damon, Artist Equity. That's the production team they started, which is super cool because the deal is, and which I think this is their first film, Artist Equity. It's all about when the profits roll in, how do we distribute all of that back to the crew, production team, the staff, the writers, the talents. Everybody across the board is going to benefit from this film in ways that I guess, the studios try to cut them out of before, especially after the box office hits. So I think that's super cool. And it's Matt Damon and Ben Affleck started it. So
they want to cut. They want a cut of the shares, which is interesting for this movie that I think we'll get to later.
It is interesting, definitely. And, part of that was why I saw it in theaters and I didn't wait to, it's an Amazon studio film. There was a debate to release it on Amazon. But with all the initial early screenings, there was so much positive praise for this film. I think currently it is what they call the 99% club, which is very rare for a film to be in. It's getting all this buzz. Already talking early Oscar talks. But all fingers seem to point at Viola Davis, Ben Affleck included. In the interviews I've seen, everyone's pointing at her. And not to mention, again, he's taking his time with this film. Did y'all read that article about him and his talks with Jordan?
Oh yeah, the Hollywood Reporter article. It was an interview, and yeah, I was just like really in depth. Like Ben Affleck was like super open, and I think it's kind of easy to forget like how charming of a person he can be. Kind of like when you're only seeing him look like slumped over at like a Dunkin' Donuts, or like the photos like like the paparazzi photos of him just looking like he hates his life as he walks around with
Justice League.
Stuff like
Justice
that.
League did a number on him.
Yeah, it really did look like Justice League did a number on him.
He hates that film.
Yeah, no, I think that interview was really good, and I think it, at least for me, I think recontextualized like what this movie was about. Because like the way he talked about how he went to Jordan first and he wanted his blessing before he went and made this movie, and the way he talked about Viola Davis was just like, oh, it feels like his mindset is in the right place going in. This is going to be a movie about a bunch of white guys at Nike coming together to make a shoe deal with the guy who's like fresh out of college. But they're gonna give spotlights and give space to, I think, what might in different hands might not have gotten the same kind of spotlight. So including like Viola Davis and some of the the Chris Tucker character and stuff like that. So
yeah, no, there was definitely, in that interview he said, this is Michael Jordan's story, and he recognizes what a prolific athlete and icon and what he means to the African American community. And I think that is definitely shown in this film. And specifically too, he said he brought Chris Tucker on, one, because he wanted to always work with him, and then two, Chris Tucker helped with the script, kind of as far as the perspective goes of the African American community at that time. I mean, Chris Tucker was alive, one, back then. Two, his character was prolific in this signing. And even Marlon Wayans' character, Ben just kind of, he had people in mind and he went straight to them. It wasn't like a casting decision, like a casting director being like, oh, you should go for this guy. Ben knew who he wanted. And we talked about this too, as far as none of these folks match the height of these actual people. suspension of disbelief, I guess.
I think
It's
something else
fine.
that's fascinating. Of course, Viola Davis was handpicked by Jordan. But also, if you're just looking across and you've already named people that are in this film, but like this is a really stacked cast. And I think, part of, and this is like, it goes two ways for me of like, that's great. Like, when I see movies, I want to see movie stars. It's not anything wrong with it. So I think it's really wonderful you have all these charismatic performers from all like different levels, whether it be TV, film, both, the stage, etc., in this film. But also, that means I wanted more of them. Like I thought we were gonna get more Viola than we did. Same thing with Chris Tucker. As soon as I saw him on screen and he was cooking, I was like, oh yes, this is why you're great. And Marlon Wayans is actually really underrated as a dramatic performer. Chris Messina, I actually think, did get a good amount of screen time and some good back and forth with Matt Damon's character. But yeah, I think what ultimately happens is you have all these really great performers, and then you just kind of want to see a little bit more of them. At least I did. I think I didn't want the movie to be any longer. I think where it ended, it was fine. In terms of, I think it's just under 2 hours, but I think part of it is because you have so many people, someone's going to have to take a hit in terms of how much screen time they get. But the good news with that is sometimes when that happens is there's some films where if you have really wonderful supporting cast and the lead is not up to it, it really hurts the film. I think Matt Damon was really up to it. He's great in these roles where he's kind of like the ordinary guy, and then in other films he can be kind of extraordinary. And so I think that's kind of one of his like superpowers as a performer. So I think having Matt Damon be so strong at least helped out in terms of not getting enough of some of the supporting characters that I really liked.
I think, speaking of Matt Damon's character goes, well, just the story in general, they made a film from this angle, looking at the business side of things, and they made it interesting. And under 2 hours, but never did I feel like I was engaged throughout the whole film. Because you could easily make the story from Michael Jordan's side of things, where it's literally his perspective, him going around. But no, they chose the Nike angle. This is a Nike story, Jordan adjacent, and I think they knocked it out no, they didn't knock it out the park. That's a buzzer winner. It's a buzzer winner. See what I did there? Sports fun.
Buzzer beater.
Buzzer beater.
Buzzer beater.
Yeah,
oh,
nice.
I'm not a basketball
Nice.
fan.
Game winner, buzzer beater. You mix them together, so you merge.
Oh,
That's okay.
I've been found out. That's okay. It probably would have came out eventually.
Well, I'm curious then, Rose the Crafter, as a sports fan, and I believe you're pretty into sneakers. I could be wrong.
I'm knowledgeable of sneakers. I'm not as into it as I used to be, but sports side for sure. I'm aware of the culture.
I'm curious how you felt about the film run.
In short, because we're about to dive into all of this, I did enjoy the film. I enjoy the perspective. They tell an underdog story with a massive brand, which is funny. Right? Because you get an underdog story with Nike, but Nike's like, they're not struggling. They're not struggling. But as far as the sports references were a lot to me, which were great and a good thing. There were a lot of names thrown around, small things thrown around. If you're like a basketball historian, you're like, okay, I know this name, and I may not have known this story in terms of the draft, in terms of what they're doing, and et cetera. So they did do some name dropping and some fan service, which I thought was good, which kind of kept it intriguing for those Easter eggs. I do think there is an element of promotion in it, especially on Nike's side. It does scream like commercial. And at the very end, when they show the post credit and they do the Like Mike commercial, I want to be like Mike. That is like, that kind of like encapsulates this movie too, because that Like Mike commercial was like very much to promote the brand of Nike and very much humanize it to people and to certain audiences. So I think it's interesting that they chose that one. I actually wrote a paper about that commercial a long time ago in my English class about its impact and how it connects to people. But I thought it was a good movie. I thought it does tell an interesting story. I think well, let's not jump ahead. It does a good job, but it's also a great little, as Dr. Rika said before we jumped on, a nice little capitalist tool as well. But it does a great job on the sports side of being knowledgeable and detailed. And I don't know Phil Knight as a personality. I don't know some of the characters as a personality. I only know them based on stories, which is another thing I would like to bring up. But those stories were told well, in my opinion. Now, could they be glamorized? Very much so. But it didn't feel like they were forcing to try to be a character, because I don't know how Phil Knight was as a person, right? It felt like Ben Affleck just did what he did with the information that he had, and he said, I'll make it my own and kind of cater it to the story. So if that makes sense, that kind of told an intriguing story as far as, instead of trying to be as, I don't know, documentary style, fact-based information, accurate, which is a good balance in movies, I think.
Actually, that's a really good point as far as when you have non-fictional stories and it comes to the dramatization of it. Do you go for the factual? Do you have the dramaturg on hand? Did you have Phil Knight? Did you talk to Phil Knight to nail this character? Or do you just kind of look at the story as it is, look at what he was up against, what he had to go through, and base a character off of that? And I think the film leaves enough wiggle room for the actors to play around with that. And more or less, I think we have a really good story. Are we all overall consensus this was a good film? This was a good outing? Oh,
you know, not to be a contrarian, but it's like I kind of agree with what everybody's saying. You know, I thought the acting was really well done. I thought some of exactly what you were saying, Rose the Crafter, like that 1984 draft was really just like an all-timer, and just like hearing those names and seeing they have like John Stockton like 16 on their big board and stuff like that was like really cool. All right, I'm getting into the weeds, and we're just talking big picture here. But one more weed thing. When they're analyzing Jordan's game-winning shot at North Carolina, and Matt Damon's character see something different than what everybody else is seeing in terms of like Jordan being ice cold at that moment and kind of like being chill. That sports stuff was great. Got me. But I don't know. It just kind of felt like, and I know we can explore this more as we go on. I always wasn't locked in, and I think where they like missed the most, in my personal opinion, was kind of like the business side of stuff, the marketing side of stuff, and trying to make me care about, to Rose's point, like Nike winning. You know what I mean? Like, I guess, you know, at the end of the day, we know what happens. So you really have to kind of make me forget about where Nike ends up and how much successful, you know, they end up being. And I don't think they always did that. So when the dramatic parts came in, and we'll get into this more, like the specific points I'm thinking of, I always wasn't locked in. I wasn't always like super glued, wondering like, oh, is this going to work? Am I rooting for them in this moment? It's kind of off in certain moments for me.
You actually bring up, because I thought the movie was fine. I thought it was good. It's not one of my favorites of the year. And I doubt it will be, considering what's coming up on the slate and what my taste is. But I think when it got to, like, they had, 72 hours to put it all together. I wanted more time of that. Like,
more time with that.
like this, like them sitting around trying to figure out the pitch and like what's the drawing of the shoe and the creation of the shoe. Like, we saw a little bit of that, and then next time, you know, we touch base with downstairs, like the shoe was in the box. Like, so I did want more of that like weekend of preparation in comparison to kind of a little of what we got in the first half of the film, because that's what was more intriguing to me. And then to Rose's point, that like they worked so hard to make Nike seem like they're this like ragtag, we only have 250K, But like y'all are making millions upon millions of dollars at this point, just in a different, in running. Like you're still a huge company. This is like such a small. So I was trying to suspend belief because at the end of the day, it's a movie. I'm supposed to be entertained. But part of me was also like, you're like a huge corporation by then. You're just like third or fourth in basketball, but you're still a lot of money. Like the CEO is driving a custom Porsche. Like this is not, a rags to riches situation here. So I think that was part of it too, is like, at least if you really want me to suspend belief, give me more time with like them scrambling that weekend to put some stuff together. Because that's the dramatics. That's what the movie, ultimately that's what about it, is that they need the damn shoe to get them on board. So let's spend more time with the shoe. So I agree that really would have given me some more investment and maybe taken my rating of the film higher.
Ooh. All right, listen, we beat around the bush. Let's get into it. What worked and what didn't? Try to hit as many beats as possible. Let's do this. As you already alluded, I think the jumping point here is looking at Nike as a whole. The film wants you to think Nike is in the slumps right now. If anything, Nike may not be in the slumps, but the basketball division, as y'all stated, they're the third-rate shoe in the eyes of NBA players. Nobody wants to sign with them. Running shoes. I thought this was funny. They're like, oh, Bruce Jenner. Nobody wants to look at Bruce Jenner anymore. Bruce Jenner's not cool. I thought that was funny.
I thought it was funny too. Not to leave you out there.
But
I mean, same with Charles Barkley line too.
Oh,
like
God,
they didn't want to get Charles Barkley. He's like he's a
locker room talker.
He'll never bad for TV, bad for entertainment.
Yeah,
and now
on TV.
He's literally Charles. He's literally one of the most like athletes to transition to TV. One of the most successful and legendary athletes to transfer to TV. So
it's interesting to see kind of inklings of those conversations. Even when they're talking about Turpin, and Sonny's over here like, ain't nobody gonna remember Turpin. He'll be in the European League. And then y'all mentioned like John Stockton, 16 on that thing. Mm-hmm. Clearly, if you know the Bulls story, John Stockton's part of it. Interesting watching that. And then I think another aspect that I thought was cool too. Again, inklings. I probably would have liked more of this too. There was a focus on Adidas and Converse in the film. Very brief, not so much, but like I didn't even know Adidas was German based.
And here's the thing too, it's like,
don't look at me like that. I think you knew German.
I did.
This is
yeah.
I didn't.
That's
but
okay
though. The thing the movie's trying to do is make you believe that Nike is like this small underdog, and they're like, pulling their shoestrings up by their bootstraps or whatever the saying is, and big bad Converse and big bad Adidas are the evil empire. And it's like they're all companies, they're all corporations, you know what I mean? And so it's like, I'm not, maybe I get it, Converse had Magic and Larry Bird, and that says a lot about like where they were in the runnings of those times, in terms of like popularity, especially when it comes to basketball. But just like in the context of watching the film, I couldn't quite hate Converse or Adidas and like be really pro Nike in the movie. One, because I know how they all end up. Two, they're all corporations. Like, like I guess like I'm realizing maybe watching this movie, I have a hard time like really investing myself in the, the success of corporations, I guess, Nike, I think that was like one of the big hiccups for me. And then we'll get into Sonny Vaccaro.
Let's talk about Sonny. Yeah, let's talk about Sonny.
I like Matt Damon's performance, and this is where I think the fiction versus like what's the nonfiction, like he's, usually in a fictionized version like a fictional story about like some guy working somewhere needing to do something really spectacular, like land a big deal. You know, he usually has like a son or a daughter he's trying to like kind of like, you know, do this for. His life is going to shits and it's all coming down to like this big moment. There really isn't anything like that for Sonny. He's, you know, he's really smart about basketball, apparently. He kind of knows his stuff. You know, he's getting threatened by Phil Knight. I always want to say Phil Jackson. Phil Knight. But, you know, there's not really like, I never really got like an emotional connection to him landing this or not. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, I was kind of like, well, if he doesn't get it, well, even though I also know he gets it. So I don't know if how do you guys feel about? I thought Matt Damon's performance was great, but the Sonny character in general.
I do think they gave Jason Bateman's character had what you were.
Yes.
I know.
And it was
Yeah.
just what's so interesting is it was in like a really wonderful scene between, you know, Jason Bateman's character and Matt Damon's, as far as like, this is why I'm doing it. But you only got like a little hint and it was on a completely different character as far as that emotional beat. And I think something else that there wasn't a lot of, it was the phone conversation, but even kind of fast forwarding to near the end of the film, and you know, Viola Davis and Matt Damon are having a conversation around like, here's what we would require to say yes, you know, to the deal, which is like some percentage of the profits. It was such a short like consideration around like just how big of a deal it is to break like generational patterns of a lack of wealth, and why like it was such a huge deal that he was getting a part of the proceeds of the profits or whatever, because that doesn't happen in the Black community. Like there's a history of like not being able to reap any type of benefits from the labor or your likeness or image in this case. And so I think it was like, I felt it in the moment of like, she's saying why this is such a big deal. Like, we need this for our family. And obviously that is why he's so successful and he has so much money. And but I think there's something to, I don't know, digging a little bit more into that in terms of at least Viola's character. Like, they're asking for a reason. Like, and we only really got a glimpse, and I don't know if these are the right writers or filmmakers to really unpack that. Just like generational wealth and Black folks and the history in this country. But that's why this deal was so big. It's not just because of Michael Jordan and who we know he becomes, but it's because the reason why he's so successful is like all the stuff outside of like not just what happened on the court. And so this is like an example of what not only just like sports figures could do, but like musicians and filmmakers, etc. Is like, how do we get a piece of the pie and try to grow this so that we're impacting someone just beyond like a corporation.
Man, and that scene was so weird to me, because just to tie it back to who are we rooting for? Who are we rooting for in that scene? Are we rooting for Sonny Vaccaro to convince her not to? Sonny's our main character. In that scene, are we supposed to be rooting for Sonny to convince her not to make that, like, you know, a hard like ask or anything? Like, or are we supposed to be rooting for Sonny to or Viola Davis, Michael Jordan's mom,
Dolores
Jordan, to convince Sonny? Like, it's in that moment, I think it's like the facts of what happened kind of get in the way of, and I think in my opinion, the movie overall, almost like the facts get in the way of telling like a clean story. You know what I mean? Like, because you arrive there and you're like, all right, Sonny's about to get everything we've been building for. He's gonna, you know, Dolores is gonna come to Nike, and this is what we're rooting for. And dang it, Dolores, you're asking for something else. Why are you doing this when we should? You know, it's like weird. You know, we should be rooting for her because what it actually means in the greater context of athletes and representation, and, you know, using their image and likeness and stuff like that. So
I'm gonna say this about Sonny. I don't think you're necessarily supposed to root for him. Not really, because again, very capitalist film. He's a gambler. He's a gambler, and they established that in the beginning, early on. It's kind of ego driven, you know. A lot of times throughout the film, he's like, "I bet my whole career on this," you know. He's like telling Phil, we got to take risks sometimes, Phil. And then he's disregarding, say, like Jason Bateman's character, who's got a family at home. Sonny's lost his mother. He's not going home to anybody. He has nothing to lose. And so I enjoy watching his character kind of be, I don't know. I guess it's almost as if he's in the hot seat at the casino, and it's like, he's on a hot streak, but is it gonna spiral for him? Does he care about anyone else he's bringing down with him? But like I feel watching the film, I wasn't rooting for him, but I was intrigued to see kind of where it goes. And then when we get to that scene with Viola, it's very much like, oh God, I'm about to lose, because she's asking for something that is almost impossible and never been done before. Granted, he just did the impossible to benefit himself, but then it's like, I don't think very much that scene doesn't paint him as a villain, but it shows the as Dr. Rika said, the generational kind of ideology. It's like, whoa, we don't do that. If you're willing to go all in on this dude, Michael Jordan, the least you could do is, and I like the quote, you get remembered for the rules you break. But yeah, I don't know. I enjoy Matt Damon, but yeah, I don't think I have an emotional connection to his character at all. But he's fun and he leads the way. I like seeing the audibles he calls, and again, the risk. Everybody plays off of him very well, I think.
Yeah, I think there's like really good dynamics between all the characters. I think, obviously I think Phil Knight, Ben Affleck's character, and Sonny DeVaccaro, Matt Damon's character have like really good dynamics. Obviously I think, their dynamics have been built over long periods of time to being friends. Jason Bateman's character, really everybody does, like, I would definitely like want to highlight that. Like, everybody seems to be like working really well together. I think I keep bumping up into against is like, for what? Like, what? Like, who is this for? Like, is it for Nike to have a good board presentation? Is it for, it's just that was like something that like I kept, I think throughout the movie, I'll explain it this way, is that, I think when you're watching a movie, you generally go in flat, and you'll get like high when you're like really excited about something. And I think the really good movies, you kind of feel yourself building, being more invested, leading up to your seat. I really enjoy this movie, but like, it just felt like throughout it, I was just kind of flat, almost without air, some might say.
Without air.
Oh, you know what? Didn't even realize I was doing that.
Yeah.
But yep, totally didn't know. And I was like kind of wondering why, because I thought it's like really well filmed, and I think I will pinpoint some shots and some moments that I was invested in. Not to say I was like flat the entire time, but I'll bring up this one now and see if you guys want to like bounce off of it. Like, the first half of the movie is like kind of building towards Sonny Vaccaro visiting Dolores Jordan, and it's kind of this big thing. He's like talking to the agent, who I thought was really good.
Chris Messina slept on.
Am I missing like another role he's been in?
Rose the Crafter's favorite, The Mindy Project.
Oh no, I haven't seen that. Maybe this is
And-
my first experience with them.
I've never seen the Mindy Project for sure.
Oh,
I am familiar with it though. This is no shot
I
at
could have
Mindy
sworn
Kaling.
you were the fan of the
Uh-huh.
Mindy Project.
No, I have seen. Was it Never Have I Ever? I like that. I like.
Yeah,
Never
that's a
Have I
great
Ever.
show. Yeah.
But
He's in that.
No, he's
no,
not.
it's just Mindy Kaling.
We're trying to establish
Oh,
why
gotcha.
Rosa Crafter likes Mindy Kaling projects.
That's
Gotcha.
not sure. Okay,
I could
Well-
have sworn it was you.
it's not me. I can guarantee.
Oh,
Especially
Well-
after Scooby Doo. Let me stop. This is not the right. This is not the right.
It's pretty likely that you have, because he's been in a lot of. He was in Birds of Prey.
Oh yeah,
nope.
yeah.
Haven't
Mhm.
seen Birds of Prey.
Argo.
He's in
He's been-
It's
Argo.
been so long since I've seen Argo.
Yeah, he's teamed up with not Matt Damon, but sort of
Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck multiple times, and then
Yeah.
was also, I believe, in 6 Feet Under.
Oh, that makes sense. Is that a
Interesting.
Ben
That's a-
Affleck project?
That's the HBO TV show, correct?
Yep,
I've only seen
Oh.
the first episode, but I haven't seen
that's
that
why
series.
it comes later on.
But anyways, I thought he was really great. So anyways, as I was saying, he's like, it's building up to Sonny Vaccaro visiting Jordan's home, and he's talking to all these people, and it's like the movie's really trying to get you to care about whether he decides to visit the home or not. And so when the scene cuts to, I think he's Jason
They say-
Bateman character gets a call, and the camera cuts to Matt Damon in the car in North Carolina on the way. I felt nothing. I just like the moment it feels like you're supposed to be super excited. It's like, oh, he's doing it. He's like visiting the home. He's like, he's being the rebel. You know what I mean? Like, I know the movie expected like me to feel something in that moment. I was like, oh, I guess he's doing it. I don't know how you guys felt the same way, but I felt like that was the biggest moment where I was like, I'm not connecting with what this person's doing. Like, I'm not invested in the arc of Sonny Vaccaro,
If you look at it from Sonny's character, if you look at the movie from a gambler's perspective, the odds are not in his favor. Everybody's telling him not to do certain things. Like, they wanted to split the budget among the 3 players. He says, let's bet it all on one. Everyone's like, that's dumb. We can't do that. We don't have the budget for it. In the conversation with Peter Falk, or is it Peter Falk? David Falk.
Peter Falks.
David Falk,
Sounds right.
Chris Messina's character. One, I would like to point out that scene real quick because usually those phone call scenes are done separately. They were talking on every phone call scene in this movie. I read about this. They're actually talking to each other on the phone, which I think is super cool, super different. You don't see that. I don't know. I understand they are building to it. I want to say it's the climactic moment, but one that introduces Viola Davis into the film.
Yeah.
And obviously you're waiting for her after everybody's been talking about her so much. You're waiting for this scene. Not that I don't think I've definitely enjoyed the build up, just kind of the whole build up of it's Michael Jordan, all or nothing. I enjoyed that build up. I guess to your point, as I wasn't maybe emotionally charged by this scene. Like, yes, he's doing
He's
it.
doing it.
But
He's
I
in North
definitely
Carolina.
I enjoyed the build up. I think from a story standpoint, they're doing it really well. I mean, he's doing what he's supposed to do for this giant audible he's calling. He talks to Phil about it. He's got to convince Phil. He's got to convince Rob Strasser, who's that's Jason Bateman. Chris Tucker's character's telling him, you got to talk to the mothers. And I like that too. He's listening to the African American about how to land or getting good or get invited to the cookout. That's what, and he's listening. He's like, I'm out of my element here. So I don't feel emotionally charged, but I enjoyed this buildup of the story.
I would Man, y'all have me thinking a lot. I was already thinking during the film. I wasn't invested in the character early on. So once I got it, I think it's great that you brought up the gambler's perspective, Grandmaster Who, because I don't know if I even looked at it the gambler's perspective or if I just watched the movie and I said, okay, early off, I know I'm not really gonna attach to this character, so let me just watch in terms of entertainment and in terms of not taking it serious, even though it could be a very real story. And I think it's I know it's to a lot of the points that you all have already mentioned. Like a lot of the real drama, the real tension, and even the real issues here are more like footnotes. And so now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, all right, I've seen a Jordan documentary, I've seen The Last Dance, I've heard the stories. So like, I know how big it is for Jordan to take on this brand. We know he's this kind of mystique character, but we know who he is, the generational impact that it had, the player empowerment impact that it had. I know all of this, but it's because I'm more tapped into the sports history of it. And so I wonder, if you aren't, and even if you are, but if you aren't as tapped in or as familiar with the Jordan story, which is funny because I think was a plus. At first I thought it was a plus that you don't really see Jordan as far as being able to just tell a straightforward story. Now I'm wondering if I'm just reading in it too much because maybe they know all this and they're like, okay, how can we just tell a very simple
Let's dramatize
story
it.
because a very simple dramatized story because we have no other way we can approach this angle because it's way too many factors here. It's Nike, it's Jordan, these are mega people, mega brands. And we know the story, but they didn't dive into Jordan's past, but then that'd be a whole separate movie in itself. Plus, if you know Jordan, you've probably known most of this information too. I don't know. Y'all bring up interesting points that makes it hard for me to look at this movie and say, wow, my life has changed by watching it.
Oh yeah, we needed this piece of information. We
needed this. We needed this. I needed to. I guess I could say it like this: as it's not the story for me as an African American man. It just surrounds a character who's influential to African Americans, whether you want to agree or not. That's a footnote of the movie, but we're getting the perspective of the this white guy who is ready to risk it all for a person. Mind you, he never interacts with Jordan. It's strictly off of the short interactions with Dolores, who Viola did a great job, but it's very short. We don't see any backstory to that. We just hear stuff. We just hear how Jordan feels. We just hear that what it means to Dolores at the end, like you said, when we get that tension build up and it's like, okay, he's finally about to get it. And I'm kind of laughing at like the absurdness of how far he went to do it. I'm like, this is just funny to watch. But then we're about to close the deal and Dolores is like, we're gonna need equity too. And to Hooper TV's point, it's like, as an audience, I don't think they meant to do this, but like, if you're just watching this movie for a second, like, I didn't think this, but it's very easy that you could by accident be like, oh, how dare he just bet it all on y'all. Like he just took more funds and doubled up the money and you want equity? You want a percentage? You're already making history. Yeah. And even the characters like, what we just did was like darn near impossible. Yeah, there's no way we could give you that. And they end up doing it, but it's a very, as everybody has already said, it's just a very short footnote that happens and the impact of that happens. But that's a tough thing to juggle for that movie, for that direction of things. So I don't know. Now I'm just literally throwing it out on the table in real time.
Yeah, I think you're bringing up a good point, though. I thought it was fascinating that we didn't see Jordan. That it was like behind, whomever the actor was. We see behind, maybe we see him talk every now and again, but it's like very, very little. And part of me was very intrigued by that because it did lend me to then having to invest in everybody else. At the same time, I think Rose, you brought up a great point of like, this is a story about one of the most like important sports figures, period, but also one of the most important Black people that has like ever existed. As a result of just like not only his sports performance, but what the movie is talking about is like this business side of things. And yes, that the film is like, we're speaking so much about him in different capacities, but I thought it was intriguing in like a more negative way that like we also just, he's not part of it. Like he's the focus of the movie, but not the focus of the movie. And so I thought that was like, I feel like it would be a completely different film if he was, maybe not what they were going for, but I did find that intriguing of like, this is a choice. I think I can see what happens by the end of the film to see if I like it or not. And I'm now stuck because I don't know if I like it or not. Because you're right, like this is a movie that's about a Black person who really actually didn't get like any particular screen time, or it's interesting. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that this needs I don't know what the movie would be if he was, but it's just really interesting.
Well, I'll say real quick, yes, and it's tough because Jordan, no offense to Jordan, he's very involved and engaged now, but back when in like the peak of his powers, he was a very like not speak on any type of issues and impact person. I don't know if you're in the writing room and you're like, do I write this because Jordan's obviously influential, but like, it's not like he spoke about this stuff during his peak of powers as well too. So I think a caveat to that, and I'm no writer, but that's why I guess it's important that you hear more from Dolores at that point.
I agree.
And that's how you get the story to stay very much with the air side instead of Jordan. But we get more of Dolores, who seems like a very powerful, influential figure in his life and as far as negotiating those things and everything, and got that deeper meaning to it. But I don't know. That's tough. It's tough. It's a tough thing to touch. But it's a tough thing to touch. That's all I'll say. I don't know how to approach that.
You bring up a good point.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dr. Rika.
Oh, it's short. I was mainly going to say that I agree. Like I thought Viola's part was going to be bigger as a result of like, we're not seeing Jordan on screen, like as a character. And I thought that meant Dolores is going to take more of the reins. And she was very much in a supporting role. She was not
very much
in a
very much
film as I thought. So I think that's a great point of like, okay, if we're not having this Jordan, we will have Dolores Jordan though. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I was just gonna add on to I think the sports figure in me, the sports fan in me, liked not seeing Jordan. I think it kept him in this kind of like mythological space. He's like just too big to be seen. You know what I mean? Like, what actor would portray him? Nobody.
His name is Damian Delano Young. Who we see the back of his head.
With him. Oh, that's the guy playing him.
Yeah, that's the guy playing him.
The back of the head.
Yeah, it's the back of the head.
The good back of the head. I really thought his back of the head played the role of Jordan's back of the head really well, to be honest.
Agreed.
It was good. It was a good back of the head. But, I think in the context of the movie, in the world of the movie, he kind of ends up getting portrayed as like a little kid who lets his mom make the decisions. Dolores is like, yeah, he doesn't really want to be here. I had to convince him to come. And he's kind of like, he seems like super indifferent to everything, I want to have a bigger conversation about the pitch scene. So I won't go there yet.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Like, he just seems like kind of like, I don't even know, like a 12-year-old. It's kind of he ends up coming across because he's just like not interested. He's not really having the conversation. His mom's doing all the work for him. When he's like, I think he went to UNC for 3 years at least. He was not super grown, but he was a college educated person, and he didn't quite come across that way as a result of the decision to keep him in the shadows and like not ask any questions in these meetings, just let his mom do the talking. But how do you feel about not showing his face, Grandmaster?
So sometimes it felt forced. Oh my God. Sometimes I was like, damn, they're placing people's heads right in front of where his head would be. Like we finally be able to see it. Like his shoulder turning. I was like, this is a little too much. This is taking me out of the believability of it all. I was like, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to show him, but I get it as far as, you said like the mythological space, but to y'all's point too, well, I mean, even in the interviews with Ben Affleck, when he talked to Jordan, he very much said Dolores Jordan was a very influential person in those meetings. And so, and I, obviously if they include him in the story, this movie can take a different route and look differently. It could be A side, what they got going on in Nike, and the B side of the film is Jordan and what he's going through. But that's not the story they wanted to tell. But I was fine with it. Again, a little egregious at points, but it was fine. I did like the focus on Dolores. Thought there could have been more, but kind of transitioning now. As far as they're going through the meetings with Adidas and Converse. I very much, talking about the emotional connection of the film, I very much was putting myself in the shoes of Dolores and James sitting in these meetings trying to see who would be the best fit for their son. And I think that part of the film I think did actually really well. I don't know. So specifically, for me, it was the Adidas scene. I don't know who Adidas had signed with them at that time. I can't remember who they said. But like
I can't quite remember either, but they were offering a lot of money. But I think they were really cool with like Run DMC and I think the Black community at that time.
Right.
I think
all other shoes too, the quality of shoes. So they were pitching
rather than like the way Converse was pitching, Bird and Magic.
Right. And so the Adidas scene, so I like the Adidas scene because the moment they start speaking German, I kind of was trying to be like, what is she thinking right now? They're having their own conversations that they don't want them to be privy to. And that is kind of this generational, I guess, distrust between company and client. The company pitches that they're going to stand by their clients, and yet the potential client's right in front of them, and they don't want them to know what they're saying. And if the scene was supposed to make me feel like Dolores was like, we want to be in the loop, I got that from that scene. And that continues throughout the rest of their conferences with Converse and whatnot. And I really enjoyed those aspects of those scenes. Did that ring any true to y'all, what I'm saying, as far as did you feel kind of that third party viewership, empathy?
I'll just go quickly here. It was so funny you say that. It's like watching those scenes, I think I felt what you're saying, but it was always in the context of like Sonny Vaccaro, where I was like they're doing exactly what Sonny said. That's why she's going to come to Nike. I think rather than like feeling what she was experiencing, I was thinking, oh, Sonny got it. You know what I mean? Sonny was right. Like they're going to argue. The Adidas is going to argue amongst themselves about who's really in charge. So in my head, I'm thinking, oh, Viola Davis is thinking Sonny's right. When Converse is like, Michael's going to be great. He's going to be mentioned in the same breath of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Which once again, it's funny if you know that like he's like in every ranking ever of any top basketball players ever is ranked above them. They're lucky to be mentioned in his name. You know what I mean? And I think I felt like Viola Davis. I think I felt like Dolores Jordan's character was like you don't understand. You don't get it. Like, that's not what I want to hear. I don't want to hear my son is mentioned with their names. I want you to believe they'll be better.
The number
once again,
4.
it came back. Yeah. I think once again it came back to me thinking of Sonny. That Sonny was right. That meeting with Viola, that meeting with Dolores Jordan. maybe it was such a good performance. I'm getting the two mixed up. It's like, wait a second. Was that Dolores or was that Viola Davis? Was that Viola Davis back in 1984? And Jordan's mom? Let me think. I kept coming back to Sonny being right, and him being right would give him the opportunity to make their own pitch.
I don't know. I see what you're saying too. But I wasn't thinking about Sonny in that moment. I was just thinking about they got to do right by their son. They want the best for their son. I could care less about Sonny in those moments because you knew he was going to get the opportunity for a pitch.
So I got a question. Kind of based around this. We live in a time where, where TV shows and giving things more space to really be like fleshed out, and kind of every story to kind of get like the space and breadth it needs to kind of like really hit home. It's a very different kind of like story, but I really enjoyed it's not the Lake Show, it's Showtime.
Winning Time.
Winning Time. Winning Time, the story of the LA Lakers. Dynasty, I think it's called, the full name. I've really enjoyed that show because every aspect is given room to breathe over the course of the season. Yes, Magic Johnson's a focus, but it's also like the business end of stuff. It's the coaching. It's like how Pat Riley comes into power as like the head coach. You know what I mean? It's like everything's given plenty of room to breathe. I guess I'm curious, do you guys feel this story, same cast, and this cast, a lot of big actors are doing TV nowadays. Like, this cast maybe would have been able to do a TV show of this. Would this have worked better as a TV show where, it's almost like we're getting a Michael Jordan story early on. We're getting, more of Viola Davis, more of Dolores Jordan, and as well as like the marketing side of, Nike and things like that. How do you guys feel?
Well, I haven't seen Winning Time, so I can't do that comparison. But I will say, I'll bring up the Last Dance again. I think the Last Dance did a very good job at spreading kind of the multiple stories that make up, the eras that they were trying to cover. But I do feel this movie gave me what I needed in the, less than 2 hour runtime. However, I am pretty partial to series as far as if you really want to super deep dive this. Obviously, an episode can literally be about Jordan and his perspective of things. An episode can focus on Jordan and his family, Jordan and the business alone. So clearly you can do more with a series. But I'm fine here.
I will say, I think I'm kind of reflecting on this now, because some of my maybe criticisms where there were characters I liked that I wanted to spend more time with. I do think it could have been fascinating to like have a character-centered episode of like what was this particular person doing during this time. Almost like, I don't know if you all have seen series where, and these tend to be not like limited series, but like long-running series that have like bottleneck episodes or bottle episodes, whatever they're called, where you get to see just a focus on one character that's sometimes a side character, and you get like this own little story. Like being able to see that, but like, for example, me and who produce TV said at the beginning, like we wish that there was like more time spent with like the shoemaking. So if you had a whole episode with like, is it Phil is also his name, I believe?
Pete.
Oh no, sorry, Pete. See, Pete, if you had your own episode, I would remember.
He passed away.
Yeah,
that was sad. R.I.P. Pete.
But like, if Pete had his entire like 60 minutes where we're seeing, okay, I got 72 hours to get this shit together, as seen on Hooper TV, or like An Hour with Dolores, or like, so you have all these people where we don't know what was happening. As we were focused more so on the Matt Damon character, I would have been kind of curious around like having something focused on each of these people and then bringing it all together. But other than that, I don't know if I want any more time. Unless they were going to be really creative, I think it worked as a 2-hour film. Mainly because I think on the front end, I wasn't interested anyway. I went because of the cast, because of like Ben Affleck directed it, and I did like his other films and things like that. So I think I don't know how invested I would be for like say a 10-hour limited series run, unless they changed a lot. So,
or just make it worth showing for 10 episodes. Rose, what are you thinking?
It benefits from stretching it out. Like, well, not stretching out, but having time to kind of really explore some things. I don't know if it's necessary, but it's a couple shows that aren't necessary that end up being good. So I never want to. You never know. You never know. Like, winning time is not necessarily a necessary thing for us to see, but to agree with Hooper TV, it actually is just it's a really well thought out, crafted series that even if you're not a fan of the Showtime Lakers, and to some extent basketball, you're in a time period and you got characters getting fleshed out where you can start to really connect with them. So it will have that benefit. But do I necessarily need the Air series? Nah, I'd be okay.
There's more drama you have to flesh out in a series, so more condensed story might be better fitting for a film.
Can I ask this really quick? You think
sure.
you think they vilified Adidas?
I mean, they were definitely.
They called them Nazis.
Nike's the hero. Clearly, they did call them Nazis.
Right.
That was a little.
Sound it though.
Yeah.
This is where I feel. This is where I feel like the facts and the fiction and the kind of like the movie making kind of like conflict with each other. Because I can't imagine Amazon wants to fund a movie that like pisses off Adidas, you know what I mean, or frames them like horribly, or like, you know, I guess Converse is like under Nike now, so maybe that's a little messy for Nike. Where Nike's,
but
like,
they didn't really dig on Converse. Now that I think about it, they bought Converse.
Yeah,
and they
that's
didn't really
true
dig
too.
on it. Even though Adidas is true, even Adidas it's factual. But it was like I was like in my hearing, let's take out the Nazis.
Well, listen, they paid a good chunk of money to Adidas just to have the logo in the film. So at that rate, it's like, how much is our name worth being in your film? You're gonna call us Nazis? Cough up another couple mil, you know?
That could be what happened. But I guess like I almost wanted them to be more evil. You know what I mean? I almost felt like they held back. Like the fact that we're having the question of like, did they vilify them? It's like, lets me know that like we needed the big bad to be like badder, so we had something to root against more. Because I was kind of I almost like felt them holding back in the movie. You know, it was just like, well, we're gonna try to vilify them. They are the rivals, but we're not gonna vilify them like too much, because you know we don't want to like.
They should be rivals more than they should be villains. You know, because then everybody who's ever signed with Adidas now looks like an idiot. You signed your life away with who these guys are painting as Nazis. I don't think they wanted to go that far with it.
Yeah, it's like and I don't, you know, since we're talking about Winning Time and The Last Dance, I think those like documentaries and TV show do a good job of like vilifying like who's ever on the other side. You know what I mean? Whether it's John Stockton's like Jazz, or it's in Winning Time. You know, I think Dr. J is kind of vilified in that TV show, you know, in a way. He's like kind of made to like be the villain like of Magic Johnson. You know, I kind of like that. I want to like them to like, you know, make me like, you know,
want more drama.
for an hour and 59 minutes, hate Adidas. You know, I wanted to root for Nike more, and I never quite got there. So maybe vilifying them would have worked. Maybe it wouldn't have, but I almost felt like I wish they went harder, just so I would have known.
I think I find that, I think Rose said this a lot earlier, regardless of maybe how they painted anybody, they're all still corporations that are making billions of dollars. So the only person I was truly rooting for was like Dolores. And like, I want you to get your money. You know, if we're in this capitalist society where the entire film is just about capitalism and like, oh, we're not making enough money, but we're actually making millions of dollars because we're selling all these it's like,
good job, Bruce Jenner.
You know, the only person that I'm invested in is the Jordan family in terms of like how did the story start? And really this is what we're leading up to is the big pitch. But like I don't care who's the antagonist or not in terms of these corporations. Like, always gonna get their buck. I would just like somebody else to get a little bit of it too. And you know, among other things, but that's not the podcast. I did find though that the pitch, as far as like if we're moving towards the end of the film.
Let's as you mentioned earlier, there was the kind of, oh, Howard, you're gonna lead them in, you know, you're gonna sauce them up a little bit. Pete, you're gonna come in with the shoe. Phil, you need to show up 7 minutes late. I thought that was really good. Like, why'd you gotta show up late? Because we're a big company. I mean, again, they're a big company. They're not some ragtag company. You gotta make them show this meeting is super important. Did you like that? So you said earlier you wanted more of that, which I think I would have probably liked more of that too, versus just that little circle shot they did. Did y'all enjoy that aspect?
I'll say before the pitch, I wanted, like, when the circle meeting was kind of cool, and I kind of did like their plan. I guess, like, you know, I kind of liked how I don't even know if it's like a great comparison, but like one of the movies that floated around to me was like Devil Wears Prada for whatever reason, because I felt like that movie like really like showed you the fashion world, and like what it takes like behind the scenes in terms of like being a big fashion editor at a huge magazine, which I imagine is like their Vogue in that world. I just like, it was almost like kind of weird how we didn't quite get more of the behind the scenes marketing. You know what I mean? Like, it was big that he went and visited the family, but like, I would have loved to see them trying to cut that video together, you know, like be working on like these magazines. The fact that everybody else went home like for the weekend and only 3 people stayed, I thought that was weird. Like, I was like, you're telling me the biggest deal of the basketball unit's lifetime is on the line and everybody went home and only 3 people stayed? I don't know. And then, you know, we mentioned this earlier, we'll mention it again now, and we'll mention it before we head out. There should have been a montage of Pete building the shoe. There should have been like 3 to 4 minutes set to like some killer 80s track of which
they used a lot of
together.
They used a lot of 80s iconic
it's
sound.
Beautiful. It is beautiful. I mean, a masterpiece. Better than the Mona Lisa, if you ask me. I've seen the Mona Lisa. This is better. You know, I think like I wanted so much more of the marketing. I wanted to be lost in the, like, not understand the phrases being used, and like, but we really didn't quite get that going into the pitch meeting. And so I was disappointed that end, but I did like the circle meeting. The circle meeting was cool. And that didn't even begin to tell you how I felt about the actual pitch. But before we get there, I see the floor to others to talk about the build up to the pitch meeting.
I mean, I agree with you as far as there's some things I would have liked to see more. For example, Chris Tucker's character, Howard. I didn't. Was he in charge of like watching over the players, their clients, like client relationship?
That's what I got. He was like, once they're in, he takes over. He's like, keeps them happy after they signed, is my understanding.
Right. So I guess I guess this leans towards why a series could be better. You get to see more ins and outs and more intricacies of how the Nike runs. I mean, we only really follow 5 people at Nike, and yet there's a whole building of people. I don't know. It's like, yeah, I mean, Michael Jordan's a big deal. All hands on deck, right? They didn't really get that.
I would
vibe.
think. I would think.
Right. It's like, everybody stop what you're doing. We got to make this happen. Didn't get much of it. But again, I guess that's not the story they wanted to tell. And again, I like the condensity of it all. Just, it's almost like it's a play. It almost feels like a play at times, this film. Just the sole focus on the main folks at Nike, the Jordan family, the agent, and that's it. Like the Adidas and Converse scenes, that's fluff. But if you want to treat this thing like a play, you literally just focus on your main people and that's it. And at times this kind of felt like a play. The montage of building the shoe, that would have been fluff.
Oh,
it would have been fluff.
Would have been the movie.
It would have been fluff.
The movie's about the shoe. Like, we should have got more of the shoe.
I think the movie's more about the deal versus the shoe.
It's called Air.
Yeah, what's the deal about?
Air is just a catchy title.
The deal's about the shoe.
I understand. I understand. But it would have been fluff. It would have been fluff. If the movie was about the shoe, Pete would have been the main character.
Probably would have felt more emotional connection to Pete.
Maybe. But if you really want a movie about the shoe creator needs to be the main character. They said, what's Pete doing on a skateboard? He's going through a midlife crisis. We don't know anything about it.
Crisis.
We don't know anything more. We don't know anything more about Pete.
Yeah, we should have got more of Pete. He was going through it. He was going through what I wanted Sonny Vaccaro to be going through to make me feel more emotionally connected to him.
Right. Did anybody flips next to the Porsche?
Did anybody have any more thoughts on the pre-pitch before I tear into the actual pitch?
I mean, I think I've shared everything that I thought. I did want more time with the folks together in that particular weekend, and I agree that I feel like more than 3 people would have probably been involved. Like, this feels like an all hands on deck situation. But
what else they got going on? What else did they have going on that weekend?
Bruce Jenner. Keep him happy.
That was the basketball floor. My understanding was that's the basketball floor. You know what I mean? Like, we don't even see the Bruce Jenner.
That was.
So, all right, let's
maybe that's what makes it fun. I'll say real quick, maybe that's what makes it funny. And I'm gonna close at the end too. What makes it funny is that we're talking about how many people should have been at the table. I don't know how many people were actually at the table, but if it was only a handful of people in real life too, I think that's kind of hilarious to me.
All right,
it gives it a whole new perspective of the movie. Is like they're trying to grow this basketball division, and like nobody really cares.
Nobody cares. Phil just said, "Do whatever the hell you want."
But then when they so to get to the actual pitch, I was like, almost like offended, like how bad it was.
It was terrible.
I think I have like, I spent a couple of years in a marketing department. That was so bad. It was like almost cartoonishly bad. And I understand that the movie was trying to tell like an arc within the movie of like, it goes really bad, and then he switches the "I have a dream" speech and just like wings it the rest. I don't know if you guys caught that connection.
I caught that. I did.
Maybe, yeah. It wouldn't be that bad though. I understand if you want to like, if that's the arc you want to go on, but Phil bumbling in, Phil Knight, like one of the biggest like CEO businessmen of like all time, knows how to talk to clients. You know what I mean? The fact that he bumbles in and like is like, oh hey, I'm very busy. You know, because I'm very busy and I have a lot of things going on. I was like, that's like you are a cartoon now. You know, like the thing is, like my exaggerated cartoonish way of saying that is exactly how he said it in the movie, which was wild to me. And then like, I don't know, I was like, I couldn't even tell what Chris Tucker's character was doing. I was like, is he going for like the black people are always late play and he's trying to like become more personable to them by showing up late on purpose? Like, I was like trying to make sense of it, but like at the same time, I was like, that doesn't seem like a smart idea, like anyways. And then he kept being like, I look out for them, so I'm here for them. Like, I'll take them to have fun, but not too much fun. That felt like all over the place. The video was horrible. I was like, why was that so bad? And then the magazine, everything was so bad. And
Hold on, your critique, all this critique you're doing is because it's so bad, it's good to watch, right? Or are you saying
it was so bad to watch? I felt like it was a bad pitch and it was a bad experience for me watching that. Like I was like
because they
uncomfortable with how
acted
bad it
so
was.
good.
No, I think no. Here's the thing. Here's what it was. It's not like the acting. It's the storytelling. It's like that shouldn't have been the script. That should have.
So you did not believe in the pitch going wrong?
No, I didn't believe it went that bad in real life. I thought storytelling wise, it was jarring and unbelievable and not compelling for it to go that bad. And it took me out of the movie.
Wow.
And I thought it was less interesting if it could have gone like better, well, and Michael Jordan still could have been interested. And then at the end, Sonny Vaccaro calls an audible and does the speech. You know what I mean?
You did not like the pitch. Let's establish that. The
really
scene.
did not like the pitch. I really did
Wow.
not like it.
I thought that was the whole point of the scene, was that it was going terrible.
But it went too terrible. It went from like, oh, this isn't going well as expected, to like cartoonishly bad. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like drama bad. Like this is a drama. This is like an adult drama, and you know we are showing you how, through like the way that we've crafted this story, that this is not going the way they planned. They are tripping over themselves with how bad they are. And I thought it just felt like a bad, maybe directional choice. Like, you know, I don't know if it started in the script. I don't know if it started with the direction. I don't know quite, but I really did not like that scene. I think it bumped it like a complete like half star, maybe a full star for me.
Wow. No, I think they did it perfect. I think that was the whole point, was that, and again, to the I have a dream speech, you know, you can plan out everything, you know, and then sometimes you just have to call out an audible, but also too.
But they didn't plan it out though. That's the thing. That was bad from the jump. That's my problem, is that Phil wasn't good at like bumbling in. You know what I mean?
Because they were asking him to act.
The video was horrible. The video was horrible. The magazines were horrible. You know what I mean? They didn't plan anything well. They planned it horribly and had to call an audible. I would have loved if they wrote something as elegant as whatever Michael Jordan, Martin Luther King's original speech was, because ain't no way Martin Luther King's speech was bad originally. He still had to call an audible, but it was still probably fire from the jump. I wish theirs was fire from the jump and an audible still had to be called. That's my problem.
I took from that scene, that simply they were just super nervous. They were doing too much planning, and they were trying to hit all check marks to where
they threw those magazines. It looks like they had spent 5 minutes on those magazines.
But no. Again, kind of to my point, as far as fluff goes, it was all fluff, and it contradicts what kind of Matt Damon, Sonny's character, was pitching in their backyard. That was a better pitch than this pitch meeting, and it was like, now they're just trying to look like they're Adidas. Now they're just trying to look like Converse. And I thought Ben Affleck, I thought that was the best part of this scene. Him
acting like he had
bumbling
never
in.
talked to an athlete before. And I'm like, what?
I bought that he was like, this is a big deal. Why am I showing up late? Because I'm super busy. You're super busy. That's what I took.
Dr. Rico wants to weigh in, please.
Yeah, because
Get in here.
frankly, not to be like mean, you're talking about the least interesting part of the entire scene, because I thought the lead up to the audible, and then having like the montage of all the future, I thought that was really well done. So I get the whole, could it have been fire from the jump? Sure. It was shitty. Sure. Okay. But the most interesting part for me, which actually did then get me invested in the film and just like the purpose of it in the first place, was the montage of him giving this like speech off the cuff, and we're like splicing in things that really did happen that at this point in time they don't know, but we do. And so I thought that was really fascinating. I thought that was a good way of trying to integrate in more of like ultimately who we didn't see on screen, which is Jordan. And so whether the pitch meeting initially went good or bad, I didn't really care about, because the audible was so good. So that's kind of my perspective on that, is I really just did like the scene and the speech and kind of that particular. I thought that was the most like emotionally invested I felt in the Sonny character. And then just really liked the looking into the future, which for us I guess is the past, but
time loop.
I love this course. This is more entertaining than the movie at some point. Listen, all valid points. I don't even know what to say about the video. I think there were some elements where it done well, and there's some elements where it was very comedic to me too. So I was entertained by the whole scene of it. I was entertained by him coming in late, because I'm like, this is terrible. And so I'm up here laughing. I'm like, this is awful. Yeah, he came in completely wrong. You're right, Chris Tucker's character, like coming in a little bit late, and the dramatization of it. I don't know. I'm like, that should we had just leaned into like dropping the drama and making this a comedy, and just completely like just making, not I don't want to say a joke, but because Dolores is still very important, but a parody of these corporations and everything, trying to pull it together. When it gave like a different lens to the movie, now that I think about it. Because the funniest thing to me, which is like a dramatic moment, is like the audible, and he says a line that they kept bringing up over and over. Jason Bateman said it first with the shoe filling, is a shoe is just a shoe, until he's in it or whatever. And Jason Bateman's over there with his terrible marketing video, like, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I started laughing in the theater. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is very, very dramatic and and terrible, but for some reason entertaining to me. So it could have been better. Yeah, I don't know. I love this discourse though. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I don't know why I feel so strongly about it. But what did they do all weekend? Like, that video was horrible. Like, if those magazines look like they like cut it out and like sticky glued them on. To Dr. Rico's point, I think the early parts for me, as I think about that scene, completely overshadow kind of like the audible, and like my memory of it. But also I think in the movie, when I was watching it, like I was so taken aback. I almost felt like, and I'm no marketer. I work in the marketing department for a little bit, but I was like offended for all marketers. I was like, these guys aren't real marketers. This is like, no, they wouldn't come in this horrible. And because they did, and I was so like taken aback, and I don't know any other marketers, I'm going to go on like some marketing forums and see if anybody else feels how I feel. And I think I was like, just like so like jarred by that early parts of it and it being that horrible. By the time it got to what I actually think I agree is like the actual juice, the actual important part of that scene, I was still reeling. It was still trying to figure out what just happened prior. So, which might be a me thing. So
It might be a you thing.
It could be. It could be.
I
would
very
rule
much
that
thought
out.
this was a comedy drama film. So I think
It
we were
is. It's
supposed
a
to laugh.
comedy drama. But
Okay.
now I'm figuring if it should have leaned more one way than the other because they tried to balance it.
Yeah,
Well,
And
here's
now
the
I'm like,
thing.
should it lean into comedy? Should it lean into drama more? I don't know.
I think it probably should have leaned into the comedy more.
I kind of think that it never quite figured out what it wanted to be. I think it wanted the best of both worlds, or all the worlds. I think it wanted to be a basketball movie. I think it wanted to be an important movie to the Black community. I think it wanted to be a comedy. I think it wanted to be a drama. I think it wanted to be a movie about business, a movie about marketing, a movie about endorsement, a movie about deal making. And I'm hesitant to say if this succeeded in any one of those aspects. I don't know if there's one in particular that you guys were like, oh, it was great at this. I think it was kind of good in everything without maybe being spectacular.
So Jack of all trades is a massive none.
Yeah, I think it was pretty even.
I don't think so.
I think it was pretty even throughout the whole film. I mean, we already talked about The Call. Anything else on The Call? Yeah, we pretty much touched upon it. And we know how this thing ends.
He gets it, and he goes to Phil Knight with his tail between his legs, and he's like, well, Phil, she wants equity, she wants a percentage, she wants her cut. Phil's like, all right, cool, we'll give it to her. That was another interesting scene. I guess Phil came around finally to believing in it.
I guess I liked, kind of in conjunction with that scene, was throughout the movie they were dropping kind of the Nike rules, the rules of Nike, how the rules he built up, which they were so quick I barely got any of them.
Yeah,
I wish they had a little more focus, because had I actually had time to read them, I don't know why I wasn't reading them, but it could have made a lot of scenes ring more true if you actually paid attention to how the scene played out in the rule they just showed. But either way, yeah, I don't know where I was going with this, but
it was an interesting choice, those rules.
Yeah, I think the rule was, no, I don't know. He said you're remembered for the rules you break. So at that point, it's like it doesn't even matter because they broke the rules. Change the game. I do like how, I didn't know this, Sonny was, they were doing the thing where they tell you what they did in real life. I don't know what that's called. Is there a term for when a movie ends like that?
I don't think I know it, but I know what you're talking about.
There's a name. I want to know the name of that, but I didn't know Sonny was influential in that case that got all the college athletes, whatever.
Their name, image, and likeness.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see that there too at the end. I think I want to look into it more to kind of figure out exactly the role he played. But yeah, that was very interesting.
I don't know where I was going with that either. I like that part.
They dropped some interesting facts. Some interesting facts for sure.
Yeah. But that's the end of the movie. Where do we go from here? Are we walking away with some? I don't think any of us are walking away with some deeper philosophical meaning. Capitalism won at the end. There was the precedent. The precedent was good. As far as athletes getting paid for their likeness and everything.
The precedent was very, very, very slow. You know what I mean? In terms of it wasn't like the next Michael Jordan was. I don't even know. When the next person who was able to kind of capitalize on similar deals, it might not have been until the 2000s, with LeBron and stuff, or maybe Kobe. It took a long time. You know what I mean? This was Michael Jordan was for sure in a class of his own for a very long time.
It opened the door.
It did. He was the first, and somebody had to be the first. So he definitely deserves credit for that. I think in terms of like the impact, you might be seeing it the most today, like in terms of like the name, image, and likeness. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it's like a direct line, you know what I mean, in terms of like this deal led to the NIL deals we're seeing in college athletes nowadays. But, I definitely think maybe it's like a curvy line with some ups and downs and
you think
some twists and turns.
A lot of athletes go into those meetings and be like, what about Michael Jordan? Y'all did it for him. And they look at that guy and like,
I would actually like to know how many deals Nike cut where like the athlete gets a cut after this. Like I'll try to look that up and see if I can provide that information before the podcast ends.
I guess
I think it did give Barkley a good deal with. I'm not sure 100%, but I think I remember Barkley doing an interview saying Jordan, because they were friends back then.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of did tell him privately, like, you should go and ask for this, or you should ask him to give you this when he was getting his. Yeah, because they came up around the same time.
Did
So I don't want to probably fact check me on that exactly what that meant for Charles Barkley per se, but I think it was mentioned to kind of try to get some type of equity or likeness percentage.
Did Patrick Ewing get anything? I remember.
I don't know.
They brought him up.
They kind of hinted at. They hinted about that after, but I'm unsure. And off of one Google search, I don't know if this could be an easy thing to look up in terms of like how many athletes get percentages or equity on their shoe deals. Maybe we'll have a follow up when Air 2 comes out.
Oh, Air 2, sure.
Like, where we go from here. I'm curious about, because there are upcoming films that are based on like brand IP. I mean, Barbie's trailer just dropped last week. I think that's going to be different than what a lot of people are anticipating, because the trailers are so vague. So I imagine there's a story to tell there, and Greta Gerwig has done that in her films before. But yeah, I think it's interesting that this is the kind of film, in terms of like a comedy drama, that is very much for adults, with a stacked cast, or things that used to be made before, like a mid-budget comedy drama, were pretty popular. At least in my growing up, I would see them all the time. I think there was, of course, a shift when we had like Marvel, DC, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Star Wars, etc., like revamped, and so you have these big blockbusters that are series that people have some kind of connection to based off of whether reading books or playing video games or prior movies. And in the case of Star Wars, revamping a series and an IP. And it seems like and I said this at the very start, that studios are trying to figure out like what we need people to come to the theater and see our movies. We need to make money. And not all of us have the rights to Marvel and to DC and to Star Wars, etc. So what can we get rights to? And what kind of story can we tell based off of that? And so we saw it with Dungeons and Dragons. We saw it here with Air. We'll see it with Barbie. There are probably a ton of other things I just don't know about, I think, that are in the works. I was, reading up on some things, that there are films that there's one on like hot Cheetos. There's
no.
I heard about that.
A movie?
Yeah, so these things are in the pipeline as far as like people eat hot Cheetos.
Is it animated? Is Chester Cheeto a character?
I believe it is like Air, like it's about the creation of the hot. So I think I don't know what we're doing, Hollywood. I don't know what we're doing. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. I saw the movie. Did I have a good time? Yes, because the cast was great, and I want to see movie stars in movies.
Yes.
And I want to see things that are not like, I will still go and see the Marvel movie and the whatever, the big IP thing that I've been seeing since I was little. I will go and see that. But I don't always want to see things that are connected to brands or to IP. I would love to see some original content. And I guess maybe this slightly counts. But it's also still very much connected to like this bigger corporation situation. And I just want to see things where like you have a young up and comer creator, or even current well established creators. I think like there are people like Martin Scorsese that had to like is like trying to make these deals and pitch these deals to these streaming services, like, let me make a movie with you. And sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't, because there's some kind of like disconnect in terms of like what's happening in Hollywood now, and what's happening in terms of like what movies we're supporting getting made. And I don't think it's great in terms of just like being a movie lover, that like all of the big films that are talented actors and actresses, etc., are being attached to, or like Marvel films. And like immediately upon the Daniels winning Best Director and Best, Picture, etc., there was like rumors of like, we should get them, onto a Marvel film. We don't. They don't need to do that. We don't always have to for our young up and coming actors or directors or writers. Like, what was Errol that wrote like Promising Young Woman, which I had problems with, but regardless, she wrote an original film. Immediately was attached to what, like a DC film or something.
Oh.
And so,
Yeah, what's her name? I think she's great. And I'm forgetting her name too, but she's great. This rant is to say that we don't always need things that are attached to IP or attached to like ready-made characters, that it's okay to support and give your money to folks who have original ideas, because I bet they do have them. They do have them, but you're not supporting them with your dollars because you don't believe in it. But guess what? The best picture from this past year was an original idea, an original script from young up-and-coming folks, where there are familiar themes. Like, we've seen sci-fi fantasy stuff before, so that's familiar, but it's packaged in a different way, and we can do that with a lot of things. And so all this to say, you can make a comedy drama, and it doesn't have to be attached to Nike or Hot Cheetos or Mattel. Okay, the Transformers are coming back. Hasbro, we don't need it.
Hasbro, yep. Hasbro, yep.
Let people make original ideas. I promise it'll be okay. I promise that actors and actresses, a cast such as this, could be interested in that if you allow folks to have that opportunity. I thought this was like a 3.5 star movie. It was fine. It was well made. It was competently made, competently acted. But I think there's more out there that we could do. Like, Ben Affleck has literally made original films. The Town. Gone Baby Gone was based off of a book, but still, there are elements there in which, like, we can work with something, y'all. We can make it happen. Hollywood, you can make it happen. My rant is done.
We're going to take that audio.
I think The Town's based on Boston.
That's
all right.
Okay. I was going to say, we're going to take that audio though, Dr. Rika, and we're going to spread that around. That was really good.
Unfortunately though, I think after the success of the Mario movies, we're about to enter the video game phase of IP and stuff. I really think that's going to be the next big wave. So maybe after that wave dies down, we can once again get back to original ideas. But I completely agree with you. I think I'm all for original ideas. I think what attracted me a lot to this is that when I first heard about it, it's definitely not original. It's based on a true story, and it's obviously tying itself to the biggest sneaker company on the planet and the biggest athlete of all time. You know what I mean? So it's tying itself to Michael Jordan is a brand. Like, the Nike is a brand. Air Jordan, separate from those two, are a brand. And so it's definitely tying itself to that. But it still kind of felt like a fresh and original idea in a weird way to tell the story of like a deal being made. So I at least thought that angle was kind of cool and interesting. And then, in terms of going forward, similar to you, I respect Ben Affleck and Matt Damon as filmmakers, and I hope they continue to grow this company they're starting. I like the idea of it. And, even though I bumped up against some stuff in this movie, it's still like really well shot. I didn't love all the needle drops in music, but there were a couple moments where I was like, oh, all right, this one's working for me. And I would just love to see what they do next. You know what I mean? Like, they should continue making movies. They shouldn't go to Marvel and say like, hey, we need to make money. I keep thinking of Barry Jenkins, one of my favorite young directors, being signed on to, I think, Lion King 2.
The Lion King prequel film.
Lion King prequel. It drives me crazy, but that's a different conversation. You know what I mean? You don't have to do that. Young filmmakers, you don't have to do this. But that's neither here nor there. I would love for Matt Damon and Ben Affleck whether he's behind the camera, in front of the camera, to continue doing projects they want to do. And hopefully they feel empowered to tell original stories when they feel like it, So I hope more original ideas and filmmakers make what they want to make. That's what I want to see going forward.
Rose the Crafter, I'm gonna let you close it out before I wrap it up.
It's mic drop by y'all too. Great job. It is a simple movie. It is a good movie in terms of some simple things it did. But as far as its place in cinematic history, or not even, I won't even take it that deep. It's as airy as the layers are as airy as the sneaker it focuses on. So
well said.
All right then. Yeah. All y'all said it best. Funny enough, I came in with a 4.5-star rating.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought that was a little high when I saw that. But
it's definitely not to the hype of 90 whatever percent that they're calling it. But the conspiracy theorist piece of me is definitely like, okay, they've obviously pushed. It's not bad, but to put it as high as it is, I don't think it ranks that high, even as a standalone sports film, if you want to even call it that.
Well, I think of our conversation might make me drop that to 4 stars, which is fine. Again, I think Rose, you said I like simplicity. If you could make me tune in for simplicity, and you could take what is, I think, a very simple story. I don't think it's that deep of a story, but if you can dramatize it and make me care for almost 2 hours, I guess I care. So right now it's like a 4.5. I'll debate if I want to drop that a little lower, but yeah, I don't think it's gonna leave a giant footprint on the world of cinema. It is getting this Oscar buzz. Real quick, do y'all think it's worth the Oscar buzz? Some of the performances, any of them? Everyone, I'm campaigning for Chris Tucker. I really like Chris Tucker in this film.
I don't know if this. I think if Chris Tucker, I don't know what he's doing the rest of the year. I think if Chris Tucker has like another movie that comes out later this year, then this movie could have been like a good reintroduction to maybe kick off another Oscar campaign. No idea what his filmography, or if he has anything set up. He might not. I kind of think this movie is coming out too early. I honestly think the Super Mario Brothers movie just like destroying the box office and probably overshadowing Air to some extent, I think will also hurt it in the long run, because I don't think there's going to be enough buzz around this to kind of carry it. Because, Oscar season's months and months away of really kind of getting started. And so I don't quite see it. I love Viola. I don't know if this is like the role that'll carry her all the way to a supporting actress nomination, to be honest. And, love Ben, love Matt. You know what? I'm going to say it. I think Air is going to go over in terms of nominations. That's my prediction right here. Once again, not a bad movie. I think it was like a 3.5 star for me, and then I thought about it more and I dropped it down to just a plain old 3. But I don't think there's enough here to make it an Oscar contender, in my opinion. Dr. Rika, how do you feel?
I'm not, as considering Everything Everywhere came out pretty early last year and still held on pretty strong. I'm not too concerned about kind of release dates. I do think it's coming up against a lot of heavy hitters this coming summer and fall that, I could see it as like if the year ends up being kind of and lukewarm, it could be like a number 10 as far as like best pictures are considered, because I think they got a lot of people in here that the Academy loves, but with what's upcoming, I don't know if I don't see as much that would make me feel inspired to say that it would be a strong contender.
Yeah, I'll give you Everything Everywhere and Coda being early in the year and still carrying on. I mean, I don't think Air has Everything Everywhere kind of juice behind it. But yeah, to your point, the critics do love it. It seems like, I think Rose mentioned, it's really high in terms of the Rotten Tomatoes score for the critics. It'll be interesting to see if they continue to hold on to that love into the summer, into the fall. And I think, to your point, if they do hold on to that love, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck know how to make the rounds. They know how to campaign. They know how to be charming on Jimmy Kimmel and all these late night shows. So in that regard, I maybe could see it, but it doesn't matter. I've already made my prediction. I said they're going over, and I will stick by that forever. So
they're doing a big push
change.
in this. They're doing a big push in the sports marketing world for sure. Because everything that I keep up with, I've definitely seen Ben Affleck at least show up and try to talk, which, I mean, that's what they do. So yeah, if you're a sports fan, you'll enjoy a lot of the Easter eggs, but I don't foresee it really. But you never know. I don't know at these movies nowadays in these award shows and stuff. I don't foresee it being up there as a heavy hitter, but I don't put anything past what can happen with nominations and pushes for things. So
yeah,
I'm gonna tell you right now, Chris Tucker is gonna get some looks.
I don't
Just
know.
you wait. Just
Of
you
all the
wait.
things, the Chris Tucker campaign feels like an uphill battle.
I'm starting it. Just you wait.
I like Chris Tucker. To be fair, I feel like Chris Tucker, well, at least for me, is one of those people I've always rooted for. For some weird reason. I've always rooted for him for some reason.
I do like Chris
as
Tucker.
he mature as an actor. So
It's his time. It's his time.
I don't know if this is the role.
This is it.
I don't know if
This is it. This is it.
I don't know if this is the one.
This is it. This is it. I'm telling you right now. And
Time will tell.
what's another supporting actress nom? Viola Davis. So
She didn't get last year.
Didn't get this year.
we're not gonna talk about last year. Last year, we know why. She didn't get last year.
Oh, she was up for lead too. Ooh.
Some semantics, some backward semantics going on. But
That's the thing.
okay.
This movie can go over. Air can go over.
Listen, that's a whole nother discussion. Tune into our Oscar podcast to hear more about a little bit on that. And always tune in next year for our 2024 Oscar podcast. But that is it here, folks, from us at the table on Air, the hit film about the making of Air Jordans and the lucrative deal signed by Nike and Michael Jordan and the Jordan family. If you like what we had to say about Air, well, let us know in the comments section. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on all social media platforms. Let us know what you think, whether you liked it, whether you agree or disagree with our takes on Air. If you want to join the discourse and you want to disagree with anybody or anything they had to say tonight here about Air, we got a Discord. Join our Discord in the link below, and you can chit chat and call people out. You can call us out. We'll fight. We scrap in Discord. Well, yeah, without further ado, I'm your host, Grandmaster Hoop. Yanko, Dr. JaceAttorney, who's not here. But shout out to the supernovas that showed up. Dr. Rika, Rose the Crafter, and Hooper TV. With that said, we're all going to now go out and buy some Jordans. Everybody here knows a sneakerhead that probably is selling some. So go hit up your sneakerhead friends. Make sure that money stays within the community. Let's circulate that. Shout out to all the athletes. Make sure you're getting your money. And we're gonna close this thing out with
by saying what Jordans we're gonna buy.
Oh, I was gonna say we can sing "My Adidas" by Run DMC.
You can sing that. Go ahead. You got it.
I'm gonna do like MJ, and I'm gonna fade away on this one.
Oh, okay, that's good. All right, Dr. Rika, go do something.
Oh no, I got nothing.
Oh, okay, Hooper TV, go ahead.
Funding.
What was it? Was it the what are the breads? The bread 11s. There's maybe I'd get those. Let's just say I get those.
And I'm gonna keep rocking with my Adidas.